Here are the headlines for Tuesday evening, September 3, 2024. Jonathan Turley. Robert Reich's call to arrest Elon Musk is Siren's call of every authoritarian. Robert Reich, former labor secretary under Bill Clinton, has long been an advocate for limiting free speech, calling it tyranny when citizens have too much freedom of expression. He recently wrote that Elon Musk is out of control for refusing to censor users on his platform X and suggested regulators should threaten him with arrest if he doesn't stop disseminating what Reich considers lies and hate. Reich's views are part of a broader anti-free speech movement that seeks to restrict citizens' ability to express themselves, particularly when it comes to online platforms like social media. Atlantic tropics are completely broken. A lull in hurricane season has occurred just days before its peak, contradicting earlier warnings from climate alarmists about elevated tropical activity due to climate change. Meteorologist Ryan Maue attributes the lack of hurricanes to unusual atmospheric conditions, including a massive amount of dry air deep in the tropics that is preventing storm development. He also points to the eruption of the underwater volcano in Tonga in 2022 as a possible driving force behind recent global warming trends, which has led to overheating of the oceans and lower stratosphere. May notes that, while climate change predictions suggest fewer hurricanes, those that do develop will be more intense and potentially reach Category 6 or higher. Semi-trucks slaughtered as September starts off with carnage everywhere. The first trading day of September was brutal for the stock market, with the SAM plunging 2.4%, its biggest drop since August 5th. The Dow Jones Industrial Average also tumbled back under $41,000, while the Nasdaq Composite Index crashed more than 3%, its biggest drop since August 5th. Semiconductor stocks suffered their biggest drop since March 2020. Meanwhile, the yield on 10-year United States Treasury bonds slid almost 10 basis points as investors sought safe haven assets amid the market carnage. Aurora spillover? Mass criminals with AR-style rifle and pistol ransack home in Denver suburb. Police in Commerce City, Colorado, are searching for 3 armed men who stole a motorcycle from a garage in a quiet neighborhood, highlighting concerns about rising crime rates in the Denver metropolitan area. The incident was caught on surveillance footage, showing 2 thieves entering the garage with guns pointed, including one armed with an AR-style rifle. This is the latest example of increasing violence and property crimes in the region, which some attribute to the influx of migrants and lax border security policies. Newspaper releases full copy of Nashville trans shooter's manifesto. The Tennessee Star released the purported manifesto of Nashville school shooter Audrey Hale, who killed 6 people at the Covenant School in March 2023. The 90-page document reveals Hale's rantings about her gender identity and hatred for politicians. Editor-in-chief Michael Patrick Leahy released the entire document despite being threatened with contempt proceedings by a judge who had ruled that the materials should be kept secret. The Star has an appeal pending against the ruling, which claimed that releasing the manifesto could harm the investigation into Hale's actions. Turkish protesters swarm Izmir port until United States warship leaves following assault on Americans. Turkish citizens in Izmir are protesting against the American military and demanding that the United States Navy warship USS Wasp depart from Izmir's port. The protests come as the USS Wasp is in regional waters to deter potential threats to Israel amid the Gaza war, with tensions also rising between Turkey and the United States over issues such as Iraq and Syria. Demonstrators have condemned the United States for its role in causing suffering and violence in the broader West Asia region, with anti-Israel sentiment running high in Turkey since the start of the Gaza war 10 months ago. The protests follow an incident earlier this week where American military personnel were assaulted by a Turkish mob while on liberty in Izmir, highlighting growing tensions between the two countries despite their status as North Atlantic Treaty Organization allies. Is Kamala very, very afraid? Kamala Harris may not be able to stay in the presidential race until November 5th due to her poor performance and psychological state. She has been thrust into the spotlight without proper preparation or popularity, and her record of supporting crazy policies is well documented on the internet. Lurking behind her are dark forces, including American intelligence agencies, international malevolent groups, bankers, and other powerful entities that seek to control her as their pawn. If she continues to perform badly, these forces may try to get rid of her, potentially leading to the cancellation of the election or the appointment of an interim commission, which could result in Barack Obama being appointed as provisional president. 32 Venezuelan gang members overran Chicago apartment, police response time, 1 hour. A disturbing incident occurred in Chicago where 32 armed Venezuelan gang members allegedly took over an apartment complex, prompting a 911 call from a concerned resident who reported that the migrants were trespassing in the building, displaying firearms, and occupying the courtyard with motorcycles. However, it took police officers nearly an hour to respond, and upon arrival, they found no migrants in possession of weapons or motorcycles, according to officials. This incident has raised concerns about public safety and the ability of local municipalities to handle large groups of migrants. Busted spy in New York Governor Hochul's office received millions of dollars from China, bought posh homes and Ferrari. A former top aide to New York's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul has been arrested on federal criminal charges for acting as an undisclosed agent of China and the Chinese Communist Party. Linda Sun, who served as Hochul's deputy chief for 1 year, is accused of working to advance CCP interests in state government and receiving large sums of money in return. She allegedly blocked representatives of the Taiwanese government from meetings with New York government officials and lobbied to change Governor Hochul's messaging related to China and Taiwan. Sun and her husband, Chris, have been charged with multiple counts, including alien smuggling and money laundering conspiracy, and face millions of dollars in penalties. Biden-Harris Department of Justice threatens to sue 2 small Wisconsin towns over refusal to use electronic voting machines. The Biden-Harris Department of Justice has threatened to sue 2 small towns in Wisconsin over their refusal to use electronic voting machines to cast and tabulate votes. The federal government alleges that the towns did not offer accessible voting equipment for people with disabilities, which is required by the Help America Vote Act of 2022. Despite a warning from Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark, one of the towns, Thornapple, conducted its August primary election using only hand-counted paper ballots. Pentagon stonewalls on Waltz's frequent trips to China, raising national security concerns. FBI Director Christopher Wray is under scrutiny regarding Governor Tim Waltz's connections to Chinese Communist Party-connected entities and officials, which may make him susceptible to the party's strategy of elite capture. This has raised questions about possible Chinese influence in his decision-making as governor and potential future vice president. Despite calls for greater transparency, the Biden-Harris administration and the Pentagon have withheld critical information about Waltz's extensive travel history and its implications for United States national security. These are the 50 most valuable companies in the world. The world's 50 largest companies have a combined market capitalization of $34 trillion, led by the technology sector with $19.3 trillion. The top 5 companies include Apple with a market capitalization of $3.45 trillion, followed by NVIDIA, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon, highlighting the dominance of American tech companies. However, Other sectors such as energy and healthcare also hold significant weight in the global market, with Saudi Aramco ranking 6th, with a market capitalization of $1.8 trillion, and Berkshire Hathaway having recently joined the trillion-dollar club with a rise of nearly 130% over the past 5 years. Hamas hints 6 hostages killed because Israel Defense Forces got too close based on new protocol. Hamas has adopted a new protocol that orders the execution of Israeli hostages if Israeli forces are closing in, according to Huda Haifa Kahlut, a spokesman for Hamas military wing. The announcement comes after 6 dead hostages were discovered over the weekend, with Israel saying they were shot to death. Kahlut implies that guards have been instructed to execute prisoners if their positions are in imminent jeopardy of being overtaken by Israeli Defense Forces soldiers. He also blamed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the deaths of the hostages, saying he is ultimately responsible and has deliberately obstructed any prisoner exchange deal. Can they really reinvent Kamala Harris in 70 days? Kamala Harris's presidential campaign is marked by duplicity as she attempts to reconcile her radical leftist past with her current bid for the moderate vote. Despite not disavowing her previous stances on issues like fracking, immigration, and foreign policy, Harris now claims to support opposing views, creating a jumbled mess of contradictions that threaten to alienate both her extremist base and moderate voters. In contrast, Donald Trump is running an authentic campaign, unapologetically promoting his policies and record in office, which polls suggest are viewed more favorably than Harris's tenure with President Biden. United States Manufacturing Institute for Supply Management signals accelerating stagflation as Purchasing Managers' Index turns downright apocalyptic. The United States manufacturing sector is experiencing a significant contraction, with the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers' Index falling to 47.2 in August, marking its 5th consecutive month of decline. The index's subcomponents, including new orders, production, and employment, all posted declines, with new orders declining at their fastest rate since June 2023. Meanwhile, input prices rose for the 3rd consecutive month, suggesting that inflation expectations are surging once again. Inventories also unexpectedly soared, signaling a clogged manufacturing pipeline and impending price liquidations and mass layoff. Counterfeit political ads. Philadelphia Eagles disavow guerrilla street posters endorsing Kamala Harris. The Philadelphia Eagles have disavowed guerrilla art street posters, claiming that Kamala Harris is the official candidate of the team. The posters, which feature Harris holding a football while wearing a black Philadelphia Eagles jersey and helmet, were spotted in several locations throughout Philadelphia. However, the Eagles released a statement calling the posters counterfeit political ads and are working to remove them. The city of Philadelphia also stated that the posters were not authorized by the Harris campaign or the Eagles, but rather were placed illegally in bus shelters. The work is attributed to artist Winston Singh, who has created previous Fox ads for major brands. Media giant Cox Media Group bragged about eavesdropping on phone, laptop, or smart home microphone. A leaked pitch deck from Cox Media Group appears to confirm that devices such as smartphones, laptops, and home assistants are secretly eavesdropping on private conversations and using the information for targeted advertising. The presentation outlines a 6-step process for capturing and analyzing real-time intent data from users' conversations, which can be paired with behavioral data to target and market consumers. This alleged use of private conversations for ad targeting represents a significant breach of personal privacy. Tech giants like Facebook, Google, and Amazon have denied listening to user conversations through device microphones, but the leaked document raises new questions about their involvement in this practice. Faced with stagnant domestic growth, China starts a new global trade war. Alicia Finley notes the massive failure of sanctions imposed by the United States government, particularly those aimed at China. Despite efforts to restrict China's access to advanced technology, including microchips, China has successfully developed its own production capabilities, even producing some chips that the United States had not wanted them to have. The blacklisting of Chinese companies such as Xiaomi led to their expansion into new sectors, including electric vehicles. Furthermore, attempts to prohibit China's access to artificial intelligence through restrictions on NVIDIA chip exports were circumvented by renting computers with the desired technology. The failure of sanctions is attributed to the creation of new markets and the willingness of middlemen in various countries to defy United States demand. Home buyers' down payment hits record high, surging nearly 15% in a year. The median down payment required to buy a home in the United States reached an all-time high of $67,500 in June, driven by factors such as elevated home prices and mortgage rates. The typical down payment increased by 14.8% from the previous year's $58,788. Redfin attributed the surge to current market conditions favoring higher-priced homes located in desirable neighborhoods. With median home prices at a record high of $442,525, buyers need to put down more money for down payments, leading to nearly 3 in 5 buyers paying over 10% of the property price as a down payment. The West's real enemy is itself. Venture capitalist David Sachs criticizes Western nations for their hypocrisy in the struggle against authoritarianism. He notes that, while American politicians claim to lead the free world, they remain silent on issues such as the imprisonment of American citizen Gonzalo Lira in Ukraine and the arrest of Telegram founder Pavel Durov in France. The European Union is also pursuing a criminal investigation against Elon Musk for platforming disinformation. Sachs argues that these actions are part of a new Iron Curtain targeting those who support secure borders or freedom of speech, and that Western leaders are more focused on deflecting attention onto foreign enemies than protecting their own citizens' civil liberties. What's behind today's technology carnage? Goldman Sachs trading desk explains. Yesterday's warning that September is traditionally the worst month for the broader market and tech names proved accurate, as today saw significant losses in tech stocks. The Mag 7 experienced notable declines, with NVIDIA plummeting as much as 8% to dip below $110 per share. Meanwhile, the Semiconductor Holders Manufacturers Index tumbled over 6%, marking its worst one-day rout since August 5th and second worst day of 2024 for the semiconductor space. Who's hit 2 tankers in the Red Sea? The Yemeni Houthis have reportedly attacked 2 oil tankers in the Red Sea, one of which was Saudi-flagged, resulting in no major damage or casualties. The targeted vessels, Blue Lagoon I and Amjad, were able to continue their journey after the strikes. The Houthis claimed responsibility for hitting Blue Lagoon I but made no mention of attacking the Saudi-flagged vessel. This incident is part of a series of attacks on merchant ships by the Houthis in response to Israeli bombings of Gaza, with over 80 vessels targeted since October. Oil tumbles below $75, erasing all 2024 gains on hopes of Libya production restart. Brent crude oil prices have tumbled below $75 per barrel, erasing all year-to-date gains after reports emerged that an oil restart in Libya is expected to happen soon. However, the reality on the ground is different, with Libya's state oil firm declaring force majeure on a key field amid a widening shutdown of production triggered by a power struggle between Eastern and Western governments over control of the central bank. The nation's oil production has more than halved since the halt order was issued from approximately 1 million barrels daily to around 450,000 barrels per day. NVDA, is it finally happening? Becomes NVIDIA, is it finally happening? NVIDIA stock is extending its downward trend, trading below the 50-day moving average and approaching the 100-day moving average around $110. The longer-term trend line comes in slightly below the 100-day moving average, and NVIDIA's upside momentum has stalled. Note that the 200-day moving average is significantly lower at approximately $90. Copper rally delayed Goldman Sachs' forecast by $5,000 for base metal amid China woes. Goldman Sachs has exited its long-term bullish position on copper and slashed its 2025 price forecast by nearly $5,000, citing weak economic data from China and elevated levels of refined copper production being exported into global markets. The bank had previously warned that copper markets were moving into extreme tightness, but now expects a delay in the copper rally due to significant price elasticity of both supply and demand. Goldman's analysts have delayed their end 2024 copper target of $12,000 per ton to post-2025, implying an average 2025 copper forecast of $10,100 per ton, still above current prices, but below previous estimates of $15,000. Please provide a title for me to modify. Germany reeled from the far-right Alternative for Germany party and far-left the Brandenburg State Association, taking 42 to 49% of the vote in 2 eastern states, which could lead to huge political compromises and populist parties holding power. Meanwhile, the German Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index survey was 42.4, indicating a decline in economic activity. Automotive giant Volkswagen warned that it may shut down its factories in Germany for the first time in its 87-year history due to declining competitiveness, potentially shedding part of its 300,000 local workforce and ending its job security program. Mind the gap. Looking at some key surprising divergences. The gap between the Japanese yen JPI and the SAM 500 index SPX is significant, but it has not yet become part of the current narrative. However, risks like this often come back into focus over time. The carry trade dilemma, which involves borrowing in a low-yielding currency to invest in a higher-yielding one, still exists and has not gone away. Bank of America unhedging the main risk. The SAM 500 index has traded in a short-term range over the past 2 weeks, with significant resistance levels slightly higher, which could potentially impact its future performance.